we meet once a month, and you realize who talks, who's got things to add. Sometimes when you have a speaker speaking, and they put a lot of time into what they're saying, and they're prepared, but no one speaks after and helps them out in their speaking. And I find that interesting, where I noticed a lot of my teammates lately, everybody's pretty quiet. And when you say something, you're looking at the people, and you're like, I'm asking a question, but asking for the buy-in. And I don't see that a lot these days. I'm just finding, you say COVID, everything, and I just find that people are, I want to use the word, checked out a bit.
Yeah, that's good, Keith. And I'll respond to that, and then I want to get to John. I think what we want to do today, just in the front part of our training, is let's have some deeper conversations around how do we increase trust, right? How do we increase hope? Like, just what are the key sort of indicators of increase? Because I think that there's a big connection here from sort of the quadrant 3 team to, how do you get that trust up towards quadrant 4, and then the quadrant 2 team, how do you get that hope up, right? To communicate that quadrant 4 team. So I like where you went there. That's very practical. John, in your client calls or even your cultural calls, any connection here where you saw teams arrive?
Yeah, well, one focus that's part, I guess it includes clients, is just our rules right now, Coach. Just recently, some rules were rolled out where you're not allowed to golf with anyone other than your household people or family members. So when you think of that rule and you evaluate those people that are elected, it's really hard to have a high level of trust and even a high level of hope when a leader makes a rule like that. A leader that has their doctorate in medicine, but when you think of whatever this COVID is, and they make a rule saying, you can't golf with anyone else. Well, this is golf season. This is one of the main areas to where I have a chance to not only build trust, but be able to build deeper relationships to where we can hopefully communicate, typically in very short periods of time. I might talk about work for 5 minutes through a 4-hour golf game.
Sure.
But it's that opportunity where it's been taken away. And in that, tried to take a little bit of action, had an hour-long call with Tracy Allard, our local MLA, listened for the majority of the phone call. So within the scenario, definitely been challenged this week within these quadrants, and then trying to take the right action to where we can get back to that high hope, high trust, which is a really good feeling, right? If we can stay in those quadrants.
Yeah, that's such a good point, John. And that's such a good point about golf, isn't it? I mean, that's what Jen and I can't understand is people need exercise.
Yeah.
Tell them to not go on a cart, don't drive together. I get that. But I mean, when you're golfing, I mean, you're unless you're putting together, I mean, you're, like it doesn't make any sense. So I totally agree. But, I'd like to extrapolate that into, our lives, our business. So clarity around why I can't golf, right, is an important piece. And John, I applaud you for going to your MLA. But let's also think that through with clients and into our culture. One of the things that helps increase trust is clarity, isn't it? And would we also agree that this idea of almost over communicating? John, I would say that you over communicated with your MLA. I haven't done that. I just complain. Right? So good job on that. And so really, some of the things you guys are bringing up are really practical in regards to making sure that we get that quadrant 4 energy. Now, I want to also add a layer. So one of the things I did with this visual is I just took the outer elements of the mindset model, and it's crazy how they connect directly, right, to the areas of this team model. For example, if you think about over on this side, so you got high trust. What do you need for high trust? Well, you need some good past, right? You need a past positive focus, because you really can't trust people or situations or companies, or how about John's point, the government, unless you've got a positive past, right? And so one of the things we want to keep doing to increase that idea of high trust is to build in these scenarios where we are trustworthy, and we point people to, in the past, we've been trustworthy. So that's a powerful one. You go over the other side, right? Like, this is what's a little scary over here. Low trust. Think about those words right there in regards to the past negative focus. Like, that's crazy, right? Just going to move this a bit. There we go. Past negative focus. If I can't trust you in the past, I can't trust you in the future. I lose trust. So negativity, a past negative focus, sometimes in regards to trust, can be indicators of future problems in the area of trust. Obviously, we all know that from hockey, right? We all know that from playing on teams. Pat Quinn, one of my favorite coaches, he built his whole culture around trust. He said, I give you trust, but if I can't trust you, then you're going to be sitting on the bench. And he said, if our goaltender, this is a good example, if he can't trust that the defenseman's going to take away the cross pass, how's he going to play goal? Right? He's got to be able to trust that the D is going to take away that pass so that he can front the puck. And so this idea of trust is powerful. So we've got this low trust, high trust. Then, if you think about past positive focus, future negative, or past negative focus, then you look at hope. It's pretty cool. High hope has a direct connect to future positive focus, doesn't it? Yeah. You're looking at the future you want. You're excited about goals. Boy, that's interesting. You know what that is, guys? It's a test from British Columbia. It's one of those alarms that goes out across, emergency alert. How about that?
Dr. Bonnie checking in with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, John, I'd like to check in with her.
I'm with you.
So the idea of future positive focus in high hope, it just connects directly. And then obviously future negative focus paralyzes when we're in a low hope scenario. So look at those outer words, just you'll get this video, so you'll have this visual. But think about those outer words. If I'm in a low hope position, I'm paralyzed.
Yeah.
They're good words, aren't they? If I'm in a low trust position, I'm deflated. So think about quadrant 1 teams, guys. Put those two words together, right? You're paralyzed and you're deflated.
Yeah.
No wonder we want out. Look at that high hope word, that descriptor, activates, and it activates energy and it activates action. And then obviously, in the high trust position, it regenerates. So that's why those are powerful opposites. Now, here's what's really weird. You got a future positive focus in quadrant 3, but do you feel the tension? Because you got a past negative focus too.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of teams live, right? And a lot of clients live. And if we can the reason why are we trying to identify this? If we can identify that maybe our client had an issue with our company in the past, right? We can get them up into that place where we'll generate way more quadrant 4 energy. And then finally, with quadrant 2 teams, obviously, you know, we've got trust, but we've got to increase hope. And I think that it's a worthy use of our time to keep thinking about how do we increase trust and how do we increase hope in everything that we do. One area I want to challenge you with this week, and I've been really working on this. If leadership is influence, and Maxwell's right, if you can only have one word to describe leadership, it has to be influence, because it answers all the questions, right? Was Hitler a leader? Totally. Right? Were his values correct? No. But so you can have negative influence as a leader and you can have positive influence as a leader. But remember, in 2021, I think we have to add a word. In 2021, leadership is intentional influence. We've got to be way more intentional. And the big reason is there's so much distraction. So if we are going to be intentional in our leadership, here's what I'd love to challenge you around this week. In the context of the energy of this 4-quadrant model, how can you and how can the three of us be intentional around the conversations that we have? How in this conversation can I actually increase, I'm going to call it the energy, the high hope of this conversation? And in this conversation, how can I actually, use words that build trust? Okay. The reason I want to get down to conversations is it's the one thing that the three of us can control from our side, right? we can, that's the one area I love as a leader, because we can be intentional. Number 2, this week, I'd love the two of you, and this digs us deeper, to come up with some questions, because leadership in 2021 is so much around what we call metacognition, getting people to think about their thinking. And the only way we can do that is through asking questions to get them to think about their thinking. So I'd love you to come up with some questions that help you to increase hope in conversations and increase trust in conversation. How do you get people to focus on those two areas without saying the words? Okay, that's a bit of a challenge for both of you. And next week we'll review that and we'll dive in. Just before I move, any thoughts, ideas, questions, comments? Just the 4-quadrant, we'll come back to it, but I want to make sure that I'm not leaving before, I don't want to leave something on your mind before we move.
Coach, like where do we bring the word confidence up? I know even that's a word maybe we don't want to use as much, but personal confidence, team confidence, doesn't it all have that main driving ingredients to high hope, high trust? And if confidence is gone, and how does that confidence grow? How does it come back? How do we share that confidence? That's something that jumps off or hits me right now.
Totally agree, John. And the three of us, really want to focus in on the word. I love using the word. Dave King and guys like that, won't allow people to use the word. It actually wasn't Dave King. I got to be careful here. It was Andy Murray. Andy Murray says no one in our organization is allowed to use the word confidence, because nobody really knows how to explain it. And if you can't explain it, you can't improve it. So one area that I disagreed with Andy, right? We've all been in a high confident position, a high confident state, and boy, it's a quadrant 4. Get out of my way, let's go. Right? But we've also been down on the other side, right, Keith? You know, at times we try not to get there, but you know, sometimes life kicks us and we, for a little while, we go down and we're trying to get it back. So 2 thoughts, John. I think it's right in the visual, right? I think that the idea of finding ways to do little actions that actually have had success in the past. Confidence is not, in my mind, is not a bunch of mantras or, you know, think about this or, you know, just be positive or whatever. Confidence for me is built on solid foundation of past positives, right? So we reach back, and if you've got to build the confidence in somebody, your number one thing that you're going to do is you're going to look back at what they've done well and help them get confidence from that, right? And if you can't find anything there, then you got to make something up there. You got to go back to go forward. I think the other thing, though, from a hope point of view, is we can, leadership is very, I'm going to say directive. So leadership gets a chance to focus people on the areas that we want them to focus instead of the areas that they naturally focus. So we're going to look back at the past that was positive for them, and we're going to bring that in the context of the future. But we're going to focus them in on the positivity and not the negativity of the situation. You can do that, right? Yeah, good job. That's it, exactly. Nice. And we give them constant feedback that focuses them on what they've done well. And I think that for me, that those pieces of confidence are powerful. What would you say, Keith, when John and I talk about confidence?
Oh, it's interesting. I thought about it the other day. Like I went into, you know, you go into meetings and, you know, some of my meetings are 15, 20 people and the confidence to be able to turn your camera on. And a lot of people don't want to turn their camera on. And, you know, I'd speak to a lot of people. And even today I had 15 people and we're talking about a subject and they go, yeah, I think we're good. I said, actually, I got 7 questions here. So, but then it gets serious, right? But like, you know, talk about hope and the trust part. I find, you know, to me, the confidence leads into being present. I'm engaged.
Yes.
They see that I actually care, and it brings a level of, or the talk that we're having comes to the level that needs to be, but it's also, you know, it's not being negative and saying, well, you know, what you presented to me, I say, well, this is great, but can we build on it? But yeah, it takes confidence. Sometimes, you know, earlier in my career, I would have put my camera off and said, well, yeah, this sounds awesome. We'll deal with it another day. But I'm like, now I'm like, well, I'm in a position where let's have that chat. Maybe there's a better way to do it, and build on the people. You got to build them up. Like a lot of these people, they're in positions as well. Sometimes they're put in a position that they're not comfortable. So, and you realize maybe they don't have the experience, maybe they're not on the power play or they're asked to be on the PP, but they're young.
Sure.
They need to be in a spot to try it out, and you need to be in the spot to get the experience, like we said. So yeah, confidence is huge. I would say, it's when you're talking to people and you're in a group, but being present's a big thing for me.
Totally love that idea of being present in the neutral zone, right? And that's where our energy is. And when Keith said that, let me play this out. So let's say John and I are on Keith's team, and especially over Zoom, Keith is intentional with his leadership and is wanting to, go back into past positives for John and I so that we can, continue to have confidence even over Zoom and through COVID. One of the thoughts is to ask probing questions, open-ended questions, but specific to the person around their expertise.
Yeah.
So Keith might say, John, we're talking about this area, and this is really your area. Like, you're really good at this. John, give us your thought on how this has worked in the past for you, and has anything changed as we look at the future? Yeah. So you're setting John up to actually, with that question, to actually live in a place of confidence for him. For me, it might be a different scenario, right? Ryan, you don't really have expertise like John, but your area is this, and we're talking about that right now. And I need you to turn your camera on and just, give us your best ideas on how you think this might work.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Keith.
Oh, sorry, Ryan, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done. No, I was going to say, like, I do that a lot with decisions. If some people hold the final decision, but I always say, hey, let's talk it through as a team. Collectively, we'll add the inputs, but your expertise is this and that. But collectively, I want to have a good conversation. So when you make that decision, you can fall on the team, but ultimately you make the decision. And I'll tell you, like, it's from the old, I want to say old, but other teams I've been on, it's like, you make the decision, you own it. Yeah, you're gonna fall. Like, if it doesn't work, you're the person that takes the fall. So I just find, those little things of saying, hey, as a collective team, we make, we all throw it in, our thoughts and opinions, and then, you're an expert, we bring in the right people, but ultimately someone's got to make the decision.
Yep, totally. And I guess the only tinker that I'm finding with Zoom and COVID, and I'm doing this a lot, even as somebody that does a lot of training, is to be very specific with people. Yeah. So at the beginning, I sort of said, hey guys, got any ideas around this model? Really the focus that I need to bring to Zoom is, John, what have you been thinking? And then Keith, what have you been experiencing? Like, be really specific to the person, because most people hide behind sort of this vague question of, hey, how we doing? Yeah. So, but I love it. And let me just give you a couple of whoops, what happened there? Couple more ideas here. That's interesting. I hit the wrong button here. So there we go. We haven't talked about this in too great a length, but there's some science as we think about communication and sort of that challenge of getting you guys to through the conversations that you're having, to actually increase confidence and to actually change energy. So there's a bit of science here. They call it the peak end rule. I don't know if you've seen this one. This is powerful, especially over Zoom with clients and with culture. So what they found is that in all conversations, people remember two parts of the conversation. So it's probably important that we structure the stuff that we're doing in this area. Here's what all, the three of us remember. Number one, we remember the peak. And a peak obviously can be very positive or very negative. So structure your peak. What two things do you want people to remember? That's a brilliant question before anything that we talk about or that we focus on. Number two is, you might guess, they remembered the end. So how do you end? What energy do you end with? What subject matter do you end with, right? So if we're going to get a positive message through to our people, does that mean we never go negative? No, we can go negative. But we want to structure a positive peak and a positive end into everything that we do from a conversation point of view. This is powerful for clients, right? I think intuitively the three of us have known this. But it's cool when we can start building structure into our conversations and think through. What I want you to do this week is, in some of the conversations you have over Zoom or over the phone, take a deep breath right before the conversation and just ask yourself, what two things do I want to have, sort of stuck in the mind of the client or stuck in the mind of our people? What hits home in your gut, guys, when I talk about the peak end rule? John, what hits home for you?
Maybe trying to concentrate just on the theme. Like it's easy to have a number of focuses. The phone call could be, I don't know how long, but trying to be more intentional, about that theme.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would help, whether you're talking to a large group or just one person.
Yep.
And then speak through story.
Good.
That seems to jump out at me on kind of the peak / the end rule of stories are so powerful, aren't they?
Totally. And stories often convey a very personal, very positive ending, right? The tendency is. What hits home for you, Keith, in some of your team Zoom calls when we look at this peak end rule idea?
Yeah, I think the peak, I wrote down here like less fluff. I use that a lot in the corporate culture. We drag on things a lot and people get disinterested. If you're going to go an hour meeting or 15, get to the point, direct, a lot of substance. You just want to get to the point to be direct and what you're trying to say. When you come to the end rule, just at the end, making sure that person feels connected and engaged. Sometimes we can be talking, but like you said, we can spew everything out and then say, "Okay, have a great day," but they don't feel connected. It's like you can ask a broad question, but you're not getting any engagement. But at the end of it, it's like you ask the person, ask them a quick question, or maybe just a direct response, and they're going to give a pretty good answer. They feel comfortable, but I just find they leave that conversation getting something out of it, and they feel connected.
I like that, Keith. And as you guys already know through our times together, every training session, whether I do a 10-minute or I do a 10-hour, every training session I end by saying, John, what's the one thing that hit your gut today, and how do you action it? Keith, what's the one thing that hit your gut today, and how do you we want to bring this into a place where people can use where we're going. So, the top one here, if you look at this top red line, right, we're below the line a little bit. We have a positive peak, and then we dip below the line a little bit. So a little bit of negativity. And then, we really end at a high note. If you look at this idea of the green line, though, we're sort of above where, Keith might call this fluff, a little fluff. We're above the line. Everything's good. And then we end on a real downer, a real negative. Can I say, guys, I've even noticed this now in tone of voice. Our daughter, Christy, I give Christy a lot of credit. I don't know where she learned this, but when she's on the phone, I love being on the phone with her. Because right at the end, she'll say, okay, yeah, see you, Dad. You see how that went up?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't realize they're doing it, but you know how they end calls? All right, okay, Keith, yeah, okay, yeah, see ya.
I see it all the time, like even in my meetings and stuff, same thing. It goes downward digression, and it's like, after I'm just like, you remember the people and you talk, and those subtle little things, you're like, I really enjoyed that conversation. Yeah. So true.
So there's I'm doing a bit of a training session with an executive group of 10 and the CEO. And I got to this point where we were talking about conversations, and I got talking about this idea of mirror neurons in our brain. There's a scientist out of Italy who's discovered that these mirror neurons in our brain, they're teaching us. Science is teaching us what our grandmothers told us many years ago. and that is that we read faces, right?
Yeah.
So we read faces. And you know what's fascinating is this CEO stopped and he said, Ryan, stop, Ryan. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. He said, no, Ryan, it's not you. He said, I got to apologize to my team. And he turned to the whole team on Zoom and he said, team, I apologize to you guys. I am finally aware of something that I do all the time, but I didn't recognize it. He said, when I'm thinking like a deep thought, I look angry.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, what I want you to know is I'm not angry with you. I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
like, isn't that, you know, like, I think, guys, that is the deep awareness that we want to generate personally, and we want to help our people generate culturally. And
Yeah.
how important is this over Zoom now? Because there's no body language, right? Very little body language. It's all about talking heads. Like when I was in broadcasting in hockey, they call us a talking head, right? You got the head, you talk. So really want you to be thinking about, how do we do this? What are the best practices over Zoom? And let's try to implement our peak end rule this week around how we sort of set up our conversations intentionally so that people remember the two parts of the conversation that we need them to remember. Does that make some sense, guys?
Ryan, you got a story for us of when you had the headset on? Like, how is that exactly with the truck? Are those guys talking to you, during commercials of, hey, we saw these clips, do you want to talk about that clip? Are they kind of directing the ship for you?
You know, John, you would love it because the color guy, Jim Houston did play-by-play, I did color. And I love that part because I've got I'm hitting the button that pushes me back to the truck all the time. And as Jim's talking and setting up the play, I'm watching, but I'm also talking to the truck about, hey, I want that replay from, back when the goalie got bumped, in the last shift. And we're gonna, and then, they're smart back there. So then they go and they look at it, they pick up the forward, the bump, the goalie. So it's all processed. Here's the hard part, John, and you get used to it after 10 years of broadcasting, is the producers in your ear counting down, right, to commercial, and you have to keep talking. That's the hard part, right? So commercial in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you got to hit the 1, you're done. But through that whole time, okay, everybody, the Canucks are playing really well right now, gonna see you soon. Whatever, right? And
see you soon.
I shouldn't have said see you soon. We did talk just briefly about this idea of candor and curiosity, but we're going to layer some stuff on this because I want to stick with our theme of communication. So candor, the idea of we got to get to the meat at one point, and this is Keith's point about fluff. Right? If we just live in curiosity, hey, John, how you doing? Keith, how you doing? It's not wrong. But there's a lot of times that people dance around issues, right? Now, if we only have candor, that can be an issue too, right? Because people go, I'm not going to talk to Keith. He's upset with me all the time. So there's this combination of candor and trust and candor and curiosity. So this idea that, people, when there's lots of candor, other people tend to minimalize. That's an important concept, isn't it? How do you see that? Well, you're getting to the meat of a subject. Maybe things are a little heated. And what do you see from people? Body language, right? They start to shrivel, the shoulders come in, right? And so this idea of making sure that we've got some candor for sure, but we've also worked through some curiosity. The other thing that happens though with candor is sometimes we're all about this conversation. We just want to win the conversation. And we're not really in this place where we're curious about other people. It's all about our win. So 2 heads ups. Now I want to give you 4 different words. And instead of candor and curiosity, Jenny and I have really thought through this. We want to build this again, bolted onto the model, because that's the key visual. There's a guy by the name of John Gottman out of Seattle who works in primary relationship stuff. Jen and I call it marriage, but primary relationships. And he says in conversation, as much as you can, try to turn your conversation towards community and away from contempt.
Yeah.
Now, John, I get to pick on John. Isn't that good, Keith? I'm picking on John here.
Perfect.
John, give me your best example or your best description of contempt. What is contempt?
Oh, I at times would probably react where it's partly false, like, but they're going to try to find information, and how do you acknowledge that? What do we say? The truth sets you free. At times, those questions is wanting to rationalize or reason to where there might be some falsehoods. Could I be right there?
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Keith, what would you call contempt? It's not an easy word.
Yeah. Ooh, just contempt, I'd say settling for average would be my, just, accepting average, just be content with things. Average is, you're kind of stuck. You're just okay with it. Yeah, that's the way
Cool.
That's a tough word. Yeah.
It is a tough word.
It's tough.
I had to look it up, so I didn't give you guys any chance to do that. Okay.
I was gonna do that.
Here's what Gottman would say that the core element of contempt is. He calls it this idea of superiority. So it's almost like I'm better than you, right? And you have contempt. You think about contempt of court, right? You're not going with the rules, and it's this idea that there's that I'm superior to you guys. You guys don't know what you're talking about, right? You're not in a position to make that decision. I'm so this idea of contempt is interesting because it comes out of deep negativity, right? And it actually sees people as below other people. So it's a deep, dark hole. But guys, I want you to watch for it this week. There's a lot of people that throw a lot of contempt, right, into relationship and into team. And it plays out differently. Some of it's body language, right? Like, you're going to see sometimes bosses, they're looking at the group and they're snarling. Really, what's in their mind? These friggin' guys, they don't know how to. So contempt is interesting. I'm not saying that we're not going to do it. I am just wanting to warn us that not a lot of good stuff comes out of contempt. Gottman says in marriage that marriages that have arguments or fights once in a while don't break up until it moves towards contempt. And so this idea of moral superiority is what contempt is. And so I'm just saying that the reason I put the arrow up is we don't want to sort of stick in that area of contemptuous conversation. We want to move towards community. Are we always going to be in community and conversation? Maybe not. But we definitely want to be careful of being in contempt. Let me give you two more words here. So we would like you this week to really focus on these two words instead of this, this idea of curiosity and candor. We'd love you to focus on the word truth and team. And I think it makes so much better, connecting for the three of us around sport and hockey. So when we're in a conversation, the two questions I want you to ask yourself, as with some of your conversations, can I move this conversation towards a little bit more community, a little bit more team, a little bit more positivity? Number one. Number two, did we get to the truth? Right? Because otherwise, we're what Keith calls fluff. Did we get to the truth of the matter, or did we just dance around it? And we want you to be thinking about bringing those two together, right? So team energy, but also truth energy. And that really helps us get to that center dot, right? Now, in the context of that, think about, the outer, I want to just come back to the outer words. So when we're sort of in the moment of truth and community, it really does re-energize energy, doesn't it? You've had a good conversation, you dealt with something, so you didn't just fluff around it, but there's also a we did it together, right? Okay. Number two, if you're in the community and the team side, even if it is a bit of fluff, it does activate energy because you're feeling you're part of something. Now, does that mean you don't deal with truth? No, but you have to have enough truth, okay? Let's go to the bottom here, though. How about this one? If we have truth and contempt, would you guys agree that really does deflate energy? So in other words, it's my truth, and I'm morally superior than you guys. And I'm going to tell you my truth, and watch out because I'm going to blast it. And it just deflates the energy of the team. And then this is a great word, right? When you've got team and you've got contempt, it paralyzes the energy. So you'll get this visual, guys, but the key thing I want you to think through is towards community, away from contempt in conversations. And then this idea that, trying to combine team and truth. Team and truth. Did we get to the truth? Are we building team? Okay. Keith, what hits home when you look at these visuals?
Community and team. To me, in these times, that's where I get my energy from. When you got positive thinking, positive people, good energy, and it builds your community. It's it's what I try to thrive for. And the truth side, it's I like that word. It's an interesting word, something for me to think about. Contempt, I just looked it up in my phone here quick. But yeah, community and team, community, big thing right now. Just with the way the world is, just having that sense of community and togetherness with people. And I think the team, the team and community resonates with me pretty good.
Nice.
That's what I crave in life. It's I like people. I like the conversation, makes you think, right? So that's what drives me in life. So I like it. It's good. Contempt, I got to learn more on that one.
just because you mentioned it, what did contempt mean to the dictionary.com?
Oh, it said, yeah, it was that feeling that a person or a thing is beneath consideration, worthless, deserving scorn.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, you don't
yeah,
feel that. It's like you don't feel valued.
exactly. It's a tough word, right?
Yeah,
And you know, isn't it interesting? John Gottman, 45 plus years of research, found that marriages can handle almost everything except when they get to the point of contempt.
yeah,
Isn't that interesting? So it's a word that we want to take care of because yes, we love talking about relationships and marriage and all of that. But how about this one? If we've got a client that gets to contempt, we're done, right?
yeah,
And then how about this one? If we've got a teammate that gets to a place of contempt, we're done. They're done.
yeah. You lose
So
trust.
exactly, it's a strong word. John, what hits home in this visual? What hits home to you?
Well, when you think of doing drills, and then those drills, hopefully linking with your game performance, uh, if you consistently in practice, uh, don't put it on the tape. Like
Yeah,
something that's true, uh, there's a result off of it. Like
love that.
our actions will catch up to us. So if we don't believe that passing tape to tape is a truth, and then we go into the game and we wonder why the other team always has the puck, uh, you know, how many tests have we taken? True or false?
Yeah,
True or false? So truth really jumps out at me on wanting to see the team
yeah,
feel good about what they're doing. And the community to me is a good dressing
yeah.
room.
Good.
Maybe a couple 50 goal scorers, but when that 50 goal scorer comes in and he doesn't understand community, or if it's a female hockey team, she doesn't understand community.
Yes.
Nobody wants to be in there. They'll be the first to shower and gone. And hey, what are you doing after? Well, nothing with you. I'm gonna go hang out with another friend. And
Yeah.
and how can we mirror the truth and team in that same conversation where I think everybody wants to win. It seems in pro sports becoming more and more of getting that $10 million contract, but I think most players want to win that Stanley Cup. So community has to be talked about.
Yeah.
And how are we able to have that same conversation of doing things the right way, tape to tape passes, and there's lots of other things we can talk about. But
Yeah.
also when we then come into that dressing room, being able to acknowledge and lift somebody up. Hey man, tonight I thought you were awesome at passing. Like
Yeah.
you had four
Totally.
apples, didn't you? You might have had 3 goals, but you're talking about someone else, and they go hand in hand, don't they?
I love that. Love the hockey example, John. And what hit me when you said that was, a couple questions that maybe we can use to dig this out a bit. Number one, what is the truth in this situation? Right. That could be a great question. Number two is, what is your truth in the stuff that we're talking about right now? Because sometimes we have different, we might know what truth is, but we might have a different frame, right? Yeah, for me, it's not tape to tape. That's not the important thing, John. For me, it's stick on puck. And we
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
get on the same wavelength from what is our truth. So I think it's a great word. You remember this concept with metacognition, thinking about thinking. Anytime that we can use thinking in a question, so I might say to Keith, Keith, how long have you been thinking about that? Or I might say to John, John, when was the first time you thought about that? Anytime we can get thinking, the word, into a question, it makes people think about their thinking. Now, let's use that in this area of truth or team. How much can we get those two words into our conversations? Hey, John, I've been thinking about this word truth. Like, what does truth mean to you in the context of our relationship? Or, hey, Keith, I know that you love team. Now talk to me about the best team, your favorite team that you ever played on. So getting the words into the conversation so that we can take it deeper could be a good way to sort of look at that too, guys. There's a really cool ratio. So I want you to focus in on ratios this week. And a guy by the name of Marcel Losada said that it takes 3 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction in your culture to hold the culture you have. So in your dressing rooms, and you both have dressing rooms, what's the ratio? Now, here's the key. I want to be clear on this. I used to always think it's 3 things that the leader says. No. I was wrong. It's 3 interactions within the culture. So could be, hey, morning, John, right? Could be, Keith, can I grab you a coffee? It's the interactions. So here's the key though. 3 to 1, positivity to negativity is your minimum to hold the culture. And so what I want you to start doing is on client calls, over Zoom or over the phone, just have this word in your brain, ratio, ratio. What's the ratio with this client, positivity to negativity? Isn't that a good thought?
Yeah.
How about this? You're on the Zoom call. Keith's on the Zoom call with his big team. Ratio coming off of that Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
Did we ever have to do negativity? Sure we did. But how do I top up? Right? So the 3 to 1's powerful. Now, John Gottman, he challenges us even more. He says in our primary relationships, the minimum to hold our primary relationship is 5 positives to 1 negative. Just a reminder on that. I know we've talked about it before, but 5 to 1. So his point is in primary relationships, if we get to 3 to 1, we're struggling. And if we get to 0.77 to 1, we're submerged, we're divorced.
Yeah.
So just that reminder, right, that ratios are important from a positivity to negativity point of view. So that's sort of us, guys. I'm going to give you a little heads up for next week. We're going to look at commitment. And I'm going to show you a really cool model that we have around the 4 helmets of commitment. you guys are, I'm loving it with you guys because we're just all hockey, buddy. And we're going to look at what differentiates a soft player from a hard player on your team. And we're going to look at what differentiates a fan and a player. And we'll look hard at that. I know we've done some of that work, but we'll go deep into each of the players of your team. So we have 1 minute. John, Keith, I get to pick on John again. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, that's perfect.
So John, give me your one thing that hit home in your gut this week, and how can you action it this week?
Oh, there was lots. Wrote a few things down to review, but I think within that conversation, what are 2 things I want them to remember? Nice. Or do I want her to remember?
Love it. Love that, John. That's a succinct one that runs into every conversation. So I love that. Keith, what hits home for you and how can you action it?
Team and community. Those are 2 big things that hit for me right now. Just how can I action that? Just reaching out to people when I'm in multi conversations, make sure I'm present, engaged. Just being a good teammate and building people up. That's a big thing for me. I love those 2 words for me. They come together, team and community. Yeah, something I'll think about more.
Awesome, guys. I will make sure that I get you this recording, and just so that you can use it a bunch. And look forward to next week. I did send some timing, and I'll send it again. But Thursday for me doesn't work as well next week again. So I'll send you some ideas and we'll just figure it out together, okay?
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome, guys. Have a great week.
Yeah, appreciate both of you. Thank you.
See you soon.